Hello everyone. Today we will be talking about Lab 9, which is the recent climate variability and change. So this lab has two sections. So in Lab 9 you will be working on part 1, and the Lab 2 on the same topic you will be working on the um, rest of those concepts. So that would be Lab 10 would be your, let me show you here. So Lab 9 part 2, the way it's showing here, Lab 9 part 2 will be your Lab 10 actually. So don't get confused with that from now. Just work on Lab 9 part 1, recent climate variability and change. So I've already uploaded the presentation file on the iCollege. So let me go to the iCollege section to download the presentation file. So content, and then this is the Lab 9. This is the presentation. I need to download that. Then I will review information in the presentation. Then we will have a brief tour on the lab content. So for the Lab 9 presentation, so this is your, okay, I believe you can see the screen now. Let me turn on my laser pointer. So this is recent climate variability and change. This is Lab 9 part 1. So part 2 will be Lab 10. Just keep it that way. Part 1 is Lab 9 and part 2 will be Lab 10. So this week and the next week you will be working on the same concept. Just you will be working half this week and the rest half the last next week. So let me go to the next slide. So the research question about this lab is that, number one, how do climate and the controls of climate variability vary between the tropics and the middle and high latitudes? So uh, you have already studied those things about where is tropics, where is middle and high latitude. So usually the tropical area is near the equator, and above that is the high latitude area region, like in the pole, the in the hemispheric region, the farthest in the hemispheric region. If you look at the northern hemisphere, then you will get to, in the Arctic region is the high latitude zone, and if you look at the southern hemisphere, in the bottom of the Google, if you look at consider the globe, the lowest part, which we call the Antarctic, is in the bottom of the. One moment, please. Okay, so that would be in the. I don't know if I can. Okay, okay, okay. So the way the thing that I'm talking about, the difference in the equatorial region as well as in the polar region. So you will be introduced with those concepts in question one, and then if you look at the question two, how have Earth's surface and tropospheric temperatures changed over the past several decades? So the idea of this lab is the recent change, recent climate variability. Mostly in the previous labs, you have studied about, I believe you can recall those things. You've studied about something almost 422,000 years ago. So that was really a long time range. We discussed about long time range, but this lab actually talks about the recent time range. Like probably you will be working in the year range of 1979 to 2012, like in a short span of 50 to 100 years span of time, you will get to see the variability and work on those ideas. So the question two will be, how have Earth's surface and tropospheric temperature changed over the past several decades? So you will be working on the Earth's surface change. You will work on the troposphere temperature change, several decades, and what regions of Earth has experienced the greatest change. So there will be a question that will ask you if the equatorial region or the polar region have experienced, or the high latitude region have experienced more temperature change over past several decades, you will be presented with given some diagram or Excel file went into or Google Earth file, which you need to examine and answer which region has actually experienced the greatest change in temperature. So there is a question two, and the number three is, what is the most likely cause of the changes in global temperature over the past several decades, and what evidence is there in there that is the cause? So why global temperature changes changed? What was the region? Which region experienced it most, and what was the reason actually for those things, and what was the evidence? So you will be you'll be working through lots of those ideas to answer this question. So this lab, uh, it might take lots of time from you, so just try to put your effort as much as possible. Otherwise, because if you don't do this lab carefully, the lab 10, which is the extended version, the another portion of the same concept, so you will struggle in that part 2, which is lab 10. So be careful on this particular lab, and if you have any question confusion, just ask me, and definitely I would seriously recommend you to go through this presentation video completely, as well as then follow the lab tour instruction. With the accumulation of these two lecture video, you will be able to grasp some of the critical question or critical ideas of this lab. And still, if you have any confusion about that, just ask me over email or attend my office hour on Friday. So the definition, so this will be the term you will experience in this lab. So there is a brief discussion about the weather versus climate. So what is weather, what is climate? So the weather is a short-term condition of the atmosphere, and the climate is the uh, atmospheric condition for a certain or long range of times. Like if you like consider 3 or more decades of weather pattern, if you follow those weather pattern, if you follow if your time range is about 3 to 4 decades, then you can call it as a climate. But if you consider the shortest term, like tomorrow it might rain, the next day it might be a really sunny, really hot temperature, so that is weather, day to day basis, hour to hour basis. So that is the weather, like when you open your weather app. So like in your iPhone, if you open the app, it shows you the weather data, it doesn't show you the climate data. Why it is weather data? Because it shows you really short range of time, like today, tomorrow, next 10 days. So that is the weather range. And for the climate range, it has to be either 3 or more decades of atmospheric conditions. So this is the basic distinction. It's all about the time range. So for the weather, you can say that the weather variability is really high. Why? Because today it might rain. It might be really cold today, but tomorrow it might be really hot. So the temperature difference is really high. And for the climate usually shows a general trend over the 30, 40, 50 years. So that means if you are considering the temperature and other atmospheric condition like the precipitation and the climatic conditions and everything, then with the climate you will get to see a trend. It might show you the overall temperature is increasing, or overall temperature is decreasing, or it is being stable, something like that. So climate has a what I can say, climate has a generic change slowly and steadily, but weather has abrupt change. So that is the basic difference between weather and climate. So that's what I'm talking about, the climate variability, climatic change. So Then there will be discussion about biome. Biome means an area like on the planet classified according to plants and animals that live in it. So biome is a region in the earth, in a specific portion of earth that has similar types of weather, or like weather dictates weather or climate, they dictates the plantation. Like if the climatic condition is humid, if there's lots of precipitation, then you would see lots of forest around that region. Like if you take Atlanta as an example, so Atlanta has considerably higher precipitation compared to Arizona or probably New Mexico, where the precipitation, the rainfall is really low. So you can classify these two regions in two different biomes. One of the biomes will be something that has something to do with the high density forest, greenish region, and probably the Arizona or the some desert in those New Mexican region. Those will be different biomes. So with the vegetation, with the density of forest, there is a change in terms of the beings that lives there, in terms of animals, in terms of people's conditions and situations. So biome is something like that. And then there is another topic about climograph. So climograph is the discussion about temperature and rainfall. Temperature, rainfall means precipitation. So uh, graphical representation of a location's basic climate displaying two variables. So in some part of this lab, you will be given climographs of 20 to 30 different locations, where that graph will show you, like for Atlanta, that graph will show you the temperature variability over a year or some time, and as well as the precipitation variability for a specific location. Then you will get to see some other locations as well, in the equatorial region, in the higher latitude region, in the polar region as well. So that is the climograph. You will be given some uh, uh, Google Earth file, some figure to analyze, and based on those analyses, you will be able to answer some of these questions. So these are the definitions you will face in this lab. There are a few others as well. We'll get to know them when we will be giving you a lab tour. So there's a video. So what's the video? So sorry, one moment. Suddenly stopped working. Okay, I believe. Okay. So this is how the Köppen climate classification. There is a brief description about the climate classification on the lab. Like it classified the region in different colors based on their like biome distribution. Like biome is like, if you see, this region has almost similar lies in the similar types of biome, and then compared to that, when you go to the higher latitude, and it changes when you go up in there, when you go down there, like in the higher latitudinal region, you'll get to see different types of biome settings there. And even if you look at the polar region in this here, you can see the color is different. So in the figure, when you go to the lab, you will be given the name of those color as well. So you need to identify them. I will definitely show you how to identify biome and the information and extract information regarding those biomes. So let's wait for the lab to come. So next one is the biome. So again, so because this is the very strong topic for this lab, most of the question will be regarding this biome. So again, let me discuss it again. Are distinguished primarily by the predominant vegetation, the forest, whatever it is, which is determined by the climate, temperature, and precipitation. So then number two information is temperature decreases with increasing distance from the equator, while the temperature range increases. So what does that mean? So yeah, in the previous labs you've studied about how temperature changes when you are far from the equator. So as I can recall, there was a question that asked you to differentiate between Brazil and Canada, right? In the case of Brazil, because it was almost in the equatorial region, so you saw that Brazil has uh, less variability in their temperature. Throughout the year, Brazil's temperature stayed pretty much same. There were some small ups and downs. So the temperature difference was really low in Brazil because that is an equatorial region and that has rain all over the year. But if you have looked at the Canadian temperature, you have seen that Canada has really sometimes it has really high temperature. During the winter, it has really low temperature, and the temperature difference is really huge because that's not in the equatorial region. Then that is far from equator, and when you're going far from the equator, your vegetation pattern changes. In the spring, there's huge vegetation some region, and during the winter, that region is completely wiped out. The vegetation in that region is completely wiped out. So that pretty much explains why Canada has different temperature variability. So if you look at the equatorial region has less variability, but if you go far from the equator, the temperature range, the variability increases. And so, as I've said already, major controls of temperature and precipitation. So, the temperature, I've already told you about the latitude. If you go up in the latitude, upper latitudinal region, the temperature difference increases. As same case goes for the solar radiation. So, where the solar radiation actually affect most, there are lots of things to discuss about that. There is a vegetational region, there is cloud cover, and lots of other things. So you'll get to know about that as well. And then circulations of earth's atmospheres, you will be given some animation to see how earth's atmosphere is circulating around some region, around the equator, around the polar region or higher latitudinal region. So you'll be get to introduced about those things as well. So next one, so precipitation producing features, so keep these two name in mind. So, what are the two main reasons for precipitation to occur? So, one of the reason is ITCZ, intertropical climatic zone, intertropical convergence zone, and another one is the mid latitude wave cyclone. So, what is ITCZ? You've studied that in the previous labs, I'm sure. So, ITCZ has effect in precipitation. ITCZ creates precipitation as well as there is mid latitude wave cyclone. For most of you, probably this idea is really new for you, but I will give you the lab tour. You will be able to see some animation like the mid latitude. There is a wave cyclone. There is a wave that goes from east to west to east. So that way, that region also actually incur lots of precipitation. So if you look at there the description, so extratropical cyclones, some of the cyclones occur for this mid latitude wave cyclone, and then outside the tropics appearing for up to a week. So that is the this is huge and doesn't go away, stays near the equator. ITCZ is actually in the tropical region, and this mid latitude wave cyclone is actually outside of the tropics, out almost at the edge of the equatorial region or far beyond that. So it travels from west to east. Like if this is a globe, it travels from, if this is west, it travels this direction. travels like from west to east this way. I will show you the animation where it will show you how it was moving and affects all climate types other than tropical climates. So ITCZ is usually uh, affects climate A types, which is available in the equatorial region, and mid latitude wave cyclone is actually available in all other regions. So these are the two things you need to know. Just to keep these two things in mind: ITCZ and mid latitude wave cyclone. These two name will give you two hallmarks for two of the questions. So that's why it's really important for you to know. Then there's another thing, that is the interannual variability, climate variability. So uh, you will be given some graph where you see that there's some year particularly that is that has abrupt change, like probably 1986, probably the temperature was low, then you went to 1987, you can see that there's a peak in temperature, there's really high temperature. Again, if you're going through the graph again and again, and you will see that probably 1997 has low temperature and the 1998 has really lowest temperature for just for a year, and it became normal again probably in 1999. So there's some really spike in temperature, in terms of high temperature, in terms of low temperatures. So you'll get to see those things. So most of those things actually occurs because of some significant events like volcanic eruptions, through volcanic eruptions releasing sulfur dioxide which cools the atmosphere. So El Nino and La Nina events. So this is another things. There is description about them in the lab as well, and I will also show you some in the next slide some of those El Nino and La Nina. And regional variability can be affected by changes in ITCZ, mid-latitude storm tracks, tropical storms. So there's some variability sometimes happens. So I'm not going to go into details about those things that in here. Many other factors affect climate variability, but volcanic eruptions and ENSO. ENSO means the. Let me show you. Have global effects. Let me show you what is ENSO. This is the El Nino and La Nina. They are called as ENSO. So when you're talking about the El Nino that happened in 1997, the temperature in the Pacific region was really high in 1997. That was the El Nino event. That means higher temperature event is called the El Nino event. And in 1988 there was a La Nina event. La Nina means uh, that is a really low temperature in that time. So if you look at that region in the Pacific, you'd see the temperature is really in the lower side, probably -3, -4, something like that. But in 1997 it was +6 or something like that. So these are the things why that happened. Probably that time probably some eruption, volcanic eruption happened, or some other factors. So just Google about why El Nino and La Nina occurs. You can see some of the reason for those to happen, and also you can search with the year as well. Why El Nino happened in 1997, or why La Nina happened in 1988. So you will get to see what happened during that time, and you will be able to answer some of the questions. So for if the next this slide is talking about the variability for Atlanta. So for Atlanta, keep that in mind. Atlanta temperature is majorly affected by the Bermuda High, a subtropical high pressure cell in North Atlantic Ocean. So I am not gonna go into details about these things. This is part of your lecture. So I don't. I'm not. I believe I don't need to go into details about those things. And then initially only affected by the mid-latitude wave cyclone, hence likelihood of a DFB-DFC. So you might not know about DFB-DFC at all right now, and CFA, what are those, but when we will be giving you a lab tour, you will be able to understand what is GFB or DFC or CFA. I will show you the classification scheme and the name of those things as well. So there's nothing much to know from here. And then global service anomaly. So these are some of the graphs you will get to know, you'll get to work on. So if you global surface anomaly, so I believe I shouldn't talk about them in here because show you I will show you how to make those graph as well as how to analyze or how to extract answer from those pattern. So this is the trend line. Just follow those information in here. Increasing temperatures from 1979 to present. So if you look at the global surface trend, then you can see from 1979 to 2020, the temperature trend was in increasing direction. El Nino caused the anomalously warm years. If you look at 1981, if you look at the trend line from here, 1981 was lowest temperature, then 1998, sorry, my bad. So 1981 was highest temperature. Why was that? Compared to the trend line, the red line, if you can see the temperature was a bit higher. If you look at 1998 compared to the trend line, the temperature was higher. If you look at the 2016 compared to the trend line, the temperature was higher. So those are the event, El Nino event, the warm event, and there is La Nina event in 1992. If you look at 1992 in here, in terms of the compared to the trend line in the red, you can see the temperature was way below. And if you look at the 1993, same happened, and 2008, okay, so compared to the trend line, the temperature was really low. That time La Nina happened. So just you need to know when, what was the reason for El Nino, what was the reason for La Nina. So the question won't be that much specific, but mm, you will have, you need to have some gross idea about those events. Then there will be some graph about the surface, lower and middle troposphere. So one of the graph will talk, compare the surface temperature with the lower stratosphere temperature. So this is the trend, and another graph will talk about the surface temperature with middle troposphere. So I am not going to go into details about them in here. So there is a graph explanation. Just go through this description, just read those word, read those sentence completely. These are the some of the sentences that will probably help you to answer two of your questions. So question, keep that in mind. A question the point 3 and point 4 is really important. Just go through these things, and it will definitely, all 4 points is really important. Just 3 and 4 might help you to answer two of your lab question. So that's it. That's for the presentation. Uh, Let me start the lab tour in the next video. Thank you.